Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Susie Carter hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to make your first step towards explosive business growth, this is the right podcast for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Susie.
Abe Crystal has his PhD and is a co-founder of CEO of Ruzuku, an easy-to-use online course platform for entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, and small businesses. Ruzuku has hosted more than 75,000 courses, serving over 500,000 students around the world. He specializes in learning design and user experience research. He earned his PhD in human-computer interaction at UNC Chapel Hill. He's an adjunct professor in the School of Education for UNC Chapel Hill, where he teaches seminars and educational innovation. Please welcome my guest, Abe Crystal. So I'm so excited, Abe. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Before we start, I've done your official bio, but I really want to get kind of that your badass list. Like, why are you a badass? Why should we listen to you today? I think that's the most important, right? Besides your PhD, besides you built the software company, like what else is your badassery that we should know about? And then who do you serve?
All right. Well, I'm not a very self-promotional person, so I'm going to try my best here. I would say, so one thing is just that I've really put in the time in the trenches. So something I've done that's kind of a little bit unique, I guess, is, over my career, I've done just hundreds and hundreds of one-on-one customer interviews and usability tests where I actually watch people use software and talk to them about their needs and goals and so on. And just doing that actual direct interaction with people and how they use technology has really helped me, learn a lot and help me understand why a lot of software just isn't that well designed or effective for people to use. So that's one thing. It's just that time in the trenches.
Yeah. So who do you serve? Like, who's your ideal client and what do you do for them?
Yeah, so our ideal client is anyone who loves to share their expertise through online courses and programs and learning communities. So that might be a coach, like a career coach, executive coach, life coach, a consultant who helps businesses and improve in some area and wants to broaden how they share their expertise beyond one-on-one coaching or services.
Awesome. So talk about the software that you do have, because I think it is really unique and you really looked at finding the need, filling the need. So let's talk about it. What's the purpose of it? How will it help me? There's so much software out there. There's so many choices. Why you?
And so, there's two components really to what we do, the software and then the content that we layer with the software. So the software platform, Ruzuku, is designed to make it easy to create an engaging online course with integrated learning community. So by engaging, I mean a course that is actually enjoyable for your students, your participants to join. It's easy for them to access. It's easy for them to jump in and participate. But then it's also a learning community, right? So one of the challenges we saw with online courses and programs when we first started was the experience between having content, right? So watching a video, reading some materials, reviewing a PDF worksheet was fragmented and separate from the experience of participating in a community related to that learning, right? So often people were getting a website, right, where they could watch or review some content. And then the instructor would say, hey, now I want you to go to my private Facebook group or to go to my separate forum, right? Or to go to my, my chat, right? Like a Slack chat or something to discuss. And it was creating a very difficult experience for students, right? They're being asked to watch content here, but then have a discussion about it in this completely separate place. So one of our main focus areas at Ruzuku is to try and bring those more together, right? Where someone can jump in and take a course or participate in an online group coaching program, but have, interact with their peers and share and learn with other people in the program in the same space without having to go somewhere else.
Oh, that is so helpful, right? So what are the musts when you look at creating an engaging online course? What are the musts that we have to do to create that?
Great question. And we could probably talk about that for a few hours. So I'll give the headline version. There's a couple of key things. Like the first thing is to look at building your course from a learner-centric perspective, meaning how do people learn and how can your program serve them in terms of getting to the ultimate outcomes that they want. And that might sound like pretty intuitive, right? Like no one wants to build a course that is hostile to your learners or doesn't serve them. But the natural way that I see many people go about building online courses is actually not especially learner-centric. Most people think about course design from a content-focused perspective. They think about, hey, I want to create a course. Great. What content do I need? And how can I put it together as efficiently as possible, basically? And that's not entirely wrong, right? It's not like there's no role for content. The problem is that simply creating a bunch of content, even if it's quite good and interesting and well-produced content, won't necessarily lead people to engage in the course, to persist through challenges, or to apply and implement the ideas that you're showing them. And this is what I think is counterintuitive, right? It's actually not content alone that makes online courses and programs valuable. That's only a piece of the puzzle. So the big opportunity or insight is to step back and think about, hey, who is it that's going to be going through my course? And what do they really want to get out of it, right? If they're really successful at the end, what does that success look like? What do their outcomes look like from having a great experience? In the course, an example I often give is if you are going to offer a course on mindfulness and stress reduction, let's say, your clients, your participants, they're not joining just to learn some theories of how stress works, or even just to learn some interesting ideas and tips about stress. What would make it successful for them is at the end of, say, your 8-week program, they actually feel a meaningful difference in how they experience stress, right? They actually feel better and have a better handle on their stress as they've implemented your techniques. And yeah, so that's the big picture, the big framework, but happy to go into more details in any area.
I think this is juicy, right? So how do we make it more sticky, right? When I look at our courses, that's probably, I'm looking at, are they finishing or are they not finishing? Like some people are paying a lot of money and they show up to calls and they haven't even watched it or they haven't even done the video, right? So I'm like, why are you paying all this money and you haven't done the homework? So how do we make it more sticky so that clients will actually use what you're delivering?
Right. That is the $1 million question. And
I want you to answer it. Please answer it.
if only I could, right? If only there were a simple answer to such a complex question, I would be selling that and be a billionaire. But the question is complex. And so the answers are complex.
Yes.
But the way to break it down is to look at a few different areas. You want to first map out, okay, again, what are the outcomes, right? Like what would success look like for participants in the program? You then want to then begin to design the path that people are going to follow to get to those successful outcomes. And again, counterintuitively, often the best way to help people move along that path is to minimize the amount of information or content they need to consume. So we often talk about taking a minimalist point of view or philosophy when creating your course, because the idea is, if you think about, just to give an extreme example to make it clearer, let's say that you could get your clients to the outcome that they desire by watching 100 hours of video and doing 100 worksheets, or you could get them to that outcome by watching 2 hours of video and completing 2 worksheets.
Yes.
Clearly, it would be far superior right? If they could do that with less content and less work on their part and get to the same outcome, it's going to take them far less time, and they're going to be much more likely to complete the process, right? Because the more we ask them to do, the more likely they are to drop off. Every additional piece of content we ask people to consume, every additional action we ask them to take, every additional technique we ask them to implement is an opportunity for them to drop off because they don't have time to do it, right? People are busy. They have other things going on in their lives besides the course because they don't understand it and they don't want to ask for help or aren't sure how. Or because they just kind of run out of energy, right? Like you only have so much momentum kind of pushing you through the course. So our ultimate challenge as course designers is not to add more, but to try and make the process and the path for people to follow as simple and minimal as possible. So what I do when I work on redesigning a course, like from sort of version 1 to version 2 to version 3 of it, is look at what can I subtract, right? How can I reduce and simplify the next version of the course based on everything I learned running the previous version?
That's juicy, right? And we've done that, right? We've run a program for 10 years, and every rotation, it's slightly different. The content's there, but it's like, that's too much. And I will give you the bucket, I'll give you the house, I'll give you and realizing that I'm just overwhelming people, right? So that's really good coaching to go, less is more. I know we all say it, and we as, content providers are like, no, I need to give Abe more, I need more. No, you're reiterating, less is more.
If you think about it, I think a helpful framing for people, especially those who consider themselves coaches, but even those who don't, is to, think about the difference in experience or how we would go about creating a course versus like a coaching program or coaching service. And if you think about it, most coaching engagements will have like very high adherence, right? In the sense of people coming to calls, replying to emails that the coach sends, right? Maybe not always 100%, but usually very, very high. Whereas in courses, we often see significant drop off once you're past kind of the initial point of enthusiasm. So why is that, right? Like if it doesn't make sense if you think about it as content being what drives success, because in a coaching engagement, there often is no content, right? In pure coaching, it's just the coach asking you questions and listening reflectively and so on. There is no content. So how can it be that when there's no content, you get incredibly high engagement and adherence, but then in a course where you have tons of valuable content, you get low engagement and adherence? What that should tell you, if you reflect on that, is that content is not what drives motivation and engagement, right?
Boom. Just say boom. Just drop them here. Here's a mic. I'm dropping it, right? So talk about how your design mindset encouraged to focus on the customers and their needs. So the design of the software, how does that encourage that focus on customers and needs?
Well, yeah, that kind of gets back to what I mentioned at the outset about having spent this time in the trenches. And one of the things I noticed talking to, or something I would hear from customers when they emailed me questions, or we have like an automated welcome email when people sign up for a trial account, and then they'll reply, and I'll see what their questions and needs are. And an interesting pattern I noticed is like, obviously people try other products besides our own, right? There are tons of course platforms they can try out and experiment with. And one of the things they would tell me about other platforms that they had tried is like, XYZ platform. It was just, I tried it and it was just so complicated, right? Yeah. I couldn't figure it out. But Ruzuku seems so simple. And why is that? Because it's not like, we're talking about radically different technologies here. Even though design and the whole discipline of what's now called user experience, it's become a lot more popular and accepted like over the last few years. So it's not as unique as it used to be.
Right.
But the reality is that most technology products today, most software that you sign up and use for, it's still primarily created by engineers and by business people who want to achieve certain outcomes. And what's often missing from those two perspectives, which are critical, right? Very important perspectives. But what's often missing is the customer or users or person's perspective, right?
Right.
What is it like to actually use this day to day? And how can we make it so it's simple and accessible for you to use?
Right.
So I still think there's a lot of opportunity to bring that perspective to more products. I actually also think there's a lot of opportunity to bring it to more courses. One of the things I've noticed talking to course creators is they often don't really have a process in place for talking to their customers consistently and gathering feedback and input more systematically to improve their courses. Of course, they're getting questions from students and, it's not like they're in a vacuum, but there's a difference between just responding to what people are bringing to you versus going out and seeking that input and feedback and really bringing it into your work.
Yeah, juicy. I love that. So in your, years of doing business, what do you think has been the biggest learning lessons for you just in building companies and talking to all these customers? What's been your biggest learning lesson?
Gosh, there's so many. But I guess one of the biggest is just that it's not all about the product actually. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I didn't actually understand coming from more of a research and design perspective is it's not just enough to build something that's good and well designed and that people enjoy using. Because other people can do that too. But even if you have something valuable for people to use, it doesn't mean that people will hear about it, right? There has to be distribution. There has to be a way for people to find and discover your product and try it and adopt it. And that doesn't just come for free. And, the idea that if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your doorstep. It doesn't. You have to go out and market and distribute the mousetrap. So that was something that was not intuitive to me. I definitely came in with a mindset of just build something good and people will use it and talk about it and it will grow. And it takes a lot more to it than that.
Well, in the 90s, right, we built a membership site. It was when the internet was really big and coming out. And you think about it, that's only in the 90s. And they're just get eyeballs, So we focus on eyeballs. Then we're now what? We got eyeballs now, now what? So I think there's so many hooks in marketing and, there's so many people that are just, I think there's a lot of charlatans in our industry. That's part of why I love doing this podcast, is so people can meet people like you, right? I can bring my badass friends together and go, oh my God, you got to meet Abe, right? And you might not be for everyone, but you're for those people that really want to take the customer's point of view into play. So in this whole pandemic thing, right? Because people are still in it, we're in the middle of it. What would you say has been your secret sauce to stay in front of it, to keep your business growing? The last statistic was 60% of small businesses have gone out of business. And those are the ones that are reporting it. That's not just, the hustle people that have side hustles, right? So what's been your secret sauce to stay in front, really staying in action and growing?
Yeah, I don't know if I have, an answer to that, because our entire business is online, right? So we were insulated from the effects and we're very fortunate there. I watched with great concern, the local economy sort of dissipating around me. I used to have a really nice co-working studio here in Carbondale, North Carolina that shut down. We saw restaurants shut down. It was pretty devastating. So I don't have an answer to that. We can only hope that things improve in the future.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing, the ray of hope, I guess, was in some ways technology was able to help some of these local businesses. So we saw restaurants, for example, that never had even considered online ordering, adopt online ordering systems like Toast, and were able to, suddenly reach their customers in a new way. So there is a glimmer of hope there.
Right. So what's one thing you wish I would have asked you today?
Well, you asked my favorite question, which is about how to create more engaging courses. So I have to give you credit for that. I guess I could have wished for another hour to talk about that. I don't know. No, I think the questions were great.
Okay, great. And what's your favorite app or software that you use? Besides your own.
Sure, of course. That would be
a good one,
right? I'm pretty demanding when it comes to software, and I tend to see the problems. But I'll mention two that I use that could be of value to people. So one is called Text Expander. And this is something that saves me a huge amount of time. What it lets you do is create shortcuts. So for example, I'll type .em and it will expand my entire email address. So rather than having to type abe@ruzuku.com like dozens of times a day, I type that little shortcut, it expands it for me. That saves me huge amounts of time. If you get really fancy, you can even create templates with fields where, let's say you have an email that you commonly send to people, build that out as a template, leave fields to type in a person's first name, and then you can just trigger that template, whenever you want to send a certain email to someone new. So that saves me a huge amount of time, and I would recommend everyone use text expansion software.
I love it.
And then one more bonus one that I've just started using recently, actually, but is really promising, is called Akiflow, Akiflow. And their idea is to combine like your task manager, like a to-do list, and a calendar in one. So you see an integrated view of your calendar that it can pull from Google Calendar next to a task manager where you can track things that you want to do today and in the future. And then you can also easily schedule like specific action items onto your calendar as you want to, so you can see sort of how you're going to allocate your time. It's a simple idea, right? But like really cleverly done. And it's really helping me like manage my calendar much more efficiently.
Right. Yeah, you're not having to take it from Trello or Basecamp and then stick it in your calendar. It's doing it automatically. I love
Exactly.
that. And then what's one thing you want to be remembered for, Abe?
Well, besides the usual personal stuff, like having a family and so on, I guess, it would just be like bringing this idea of engaging online courses to reality, right? So like helping people make courses that actually work, that actually, drive results for their students and helping, move beyond the paradigm of just delivering content.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. How can we get a hold of you? How can our students get a hold of you? How can our tribe get a hold of you? How do we find you?
So you can find our product, Ruzuku, online, www.ruzuku.com. But I also love to hear from people personally, so don't hesitate to send me an email, abe@ruzuku.com. I love hearing questions about course creation, course platforms, and anything I can do to help. I'll be glad to assist.
Awesome. Thank you for today. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your excellence and being so committed, but more importantly, your time, because I can't give you that back, and you've totally poured into us. So we appreciate you, and have a blessed day.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at https://poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game, so be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.